Hey there, what's up? We're in the next part. Please go check out the previous part to gauge your bearings, guys. I'm busy explaining a story over here. I was telling you about my ex-boyfriend, right? And in telling you about my ex-boyfriend, I'm trying to get to a point in particular to help you understand that we are at the end of days, and apart from Jesus Christ, attempts, ladies, to change men and make them better are going to become increasingly thwarted and worthless, because these men are going to get pulled away from you by influence, man caves, and all other different kinds of things. And the only place where you are safe is in the hands of Jesus, because he is the only one that can usher a man into your life that is basically self-regulating, and it's only self-regulating because the Holy Spirit dwells in him, and so therefore he knows to resist the general grain of what's going on in society in these last days. But outside of Christ, you will frustrate yourself with the initial good times that you had with a guy that you're with that will never ever come again. I promise you, they will never come back, but you will linger around for way too many years thereafter, precisely because you hope to restore the initial state that this guy was in. But once he gets taken over, he's taken over, and the only way out is Jesus. All right, yeah, anyway, so I was telling you about my ex-boyfriend and how it is that he had this criminal streak. He'd only ever dated these Jezebelian women, and in order to please them, he was happy to go and bend the laws of society to please them, and he was well on his way to a criminal record. He was going to get busted at some point. And I gave him an ultimatum. I basically nipped in the bud very early on his criminal antics. When he dated me, he realized that he doesn't have to bend over backwards like that anymore, because he met a woman that was not basically the kind to glamorize. Insofar as my man takes me shopping every single weekend, I don't care where he gets the money, at least I got the money. He did not have a woman in his life anymore that loved money. I just wanted literally love. I wanted love, and I finally got it. I'd only ever been dating random dudes with whom we weren't even all that tight, all that close. All we did was like drink it up a storm, smoke, party, but not actually have a relationship. And for the first time, I had something that was meaningful, and I felt blessed to have found it at the tender age of 22, because it meant maybe I might be a bride by 24, you know. So I hung out, I stayed despite my ex, even though he told me on our first date that fine, so he used to do drugs, fine, so he used to be a little bit, you know, do some strange things, but he doesn't anymore, because that was when he was a little bit younger. I believed him until he dropped the ball literally within a month of us dating. And I found out one time when we went out partying and clubbing and whatnot that he had taken drugs the night before because he got erectile dysfunction. And I couldn't explain it away. I thought it was me. I thought it was, yeah, what's going on? Do you have a health issue? And then I realized that apparently, allegedly, him in particular, maybe even with other men, I haven't really actually I did actually study it. I did find out when I Googled it that when men take drugs, they sometimes struggle to, you know, function down there. It messes with their instruments somehow. So I don't even know what is the incentive for a man to become a junkie, because if your manhood can't operate when drugs are in your system, what's the point? Anyway, whatever. Right, so that's how I busted my ex. Like everything else, I thought maybe he was just very happy and excited. His exorbitant hyperactivity the night before, I imagined he was just happy to see everybody, right? Happy to be partying. He loved the music, even though I'd seen him partying without, and not like that, but I thought his hyperactivity was due to the music or something, until he could not do stuff. And I was like, whoa. I then remembered what the girlfriend of some friend of his had told me, that these guys are leaving us in the car to go inside the house because they want to take drugs. It has nothing to do with them guarding the coast. And I remembered what that woman said, and then I asked my boyfriend, I was like, did you take drugs? He looked down with shame. He could not lie to me. I promised him that I'm not going to dump him, following which he then confessed, and then I basically dumped him. When then I dumped him, he started to like well up, cry, and beg me to stay. My heart was pulled. The strings were pulled. I mean, don't nobody want to see a man cry. Plus, when a man cries for you, like, that's love. What am I doing walking away from it? I weighed the pros and the cons of sticking with this dude. The pros were lofty, but again, the cons, the potential repercussions of the cons were too exorbitant for me to just kind of sit this out, because I could be dealing with basically the death of a guy that I was falling violently in love with, and so devastation when I'm just like 22, or him going to prison. And I'm not trying to go your besu guy. I don't want to go visit nobody in prison on some making like Ashanti. Oh, maybe. No, I'm sorry, I'm not doing it. Okay? So I gave this guy a hard knock ultimatum, and I was like, you better stop this thing that you told me on our first date you're not even doing anymore, or we're done. And well, he said, yeah, okay, no, I'm not gonna anymore. I'm sorry, I won't. And I was like, well, I mean, I guess time will tell. Lo and behold, he actually stopped. You know that song, yeah, Percy Sledge? When a man loves a woman, nothing can keep him away. Total true story, facts that. Yeah, but it was a total viable story. When a man loves a woman. Maybe in 1938. In 2023, even when a man loves a woman, the demonic possession, the activity around that is cosmic, metaphysical, random dabblings, sorcery, will cause even a man that loves a woman to forget about his adoration for a woman. The Lord made it such that there is just a hard knock piecing, that like as in P-E-A-C-E, as in creating peace. There's a hard knock tranquilizing force that women have over men. And if they are good girls, they can transform an evil guy into something better. But if they're bad women, they can make him just wickedness, right? It's written in God's word that a good woman is like a crown on a man's head, while a wicked one is like rottenness in his bones. Women have power over men in a way that they might want to deny, but it's totally there. In the Proverbs, Solomon makes it clear that a wicked woman, her feet go down to death. She can lead a man to literally hellfire. She is immoral. She's an adulteress. She eats honey and says, I've done nothing. She denies the truth, but she is the end, the bane of the existence of a man, or that which or she which makes him. Case in point, Samson, decimated by Delilah. Yet another case in point, David, rescued by Abigail. So a woman has got power to subdue a man from committing genocide, just like Abigail did with David. But a woman also has got power to literally make a man lose his mind and give away all of his wits, and end up getting conquered with his eyes gouged out, and him basically being the laughing stock of the Philistines, as in the case of Samson. Do you understand? Again, case in point, Jezebel can make a man a total like putty clay in her hands. In her own image. Do whatever she wants with him. Which is why it is so incredibly important in the male community for them to just undergo lots and lots of training as to how to find a wife and how to identify a Jezebel from a mile away. Because once this woman is in a man's life, she will do what it is that a woman of that caliber will inevitably do in a man's life. If she's a good girl, she will transform him into something mighty. If she's a bad girl, she will transform him into something menacing. That is just the power women have. God has given us a mesmerizing force such that, like I said, even kings get subdued under us. We are either a man's Achilles heel or we are a man's Herculean muscle. One of the two, right? And I was able to prosperously be a Herculean muscle to my boyfriend. But quite unfortunately, there was an opposing force in a Jezebelian female that my ex-boyfriend was trying to get with prior to us getting together. And this chick kept on giving him grief on some, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Happy to make out with him every so often, but then tell him no. And the reason why my ex-boyfriend was told no was because he was just this call center agent. And she was, she gave me money when I'm in need. She a gold digger. She was a gold digger. She grew up with him, right? They were more or less in the same neighborhood. Wait again, before we even explain the bane of my existence through this Jezebelian female, let me just tell the story and then I'll eventually get to this gold digger. Okay? My boyfriend, in the beginning, you see, the thing about a Jezebelian woman, if at all, she passes up a dude because he doesn't have enough money. And then another woman comes in and takes him seriously and actually builds him, right? And is ride or die, wind beneath this guy's wings, and he starts to grow. Yo, Lamuntu, Ntinti. Have you ever seen a fly just kind of hovering around, all up in your grill, making a noise, hanging out on your food and stuff? She will be a pest. She will be a pest. And I got a pest. I had a pest. And guys, Yazzie, you know how to swat a fly when you know how to swat a fly, because you that girl. And don't nobody know how to swat a fly better than an actually truly virtuous woman. And a guy that is wise will not act a little Dumbo and pass up or mess up with a woman that has been ride or die with him as Nanix for some Jezebel. So I eventually conquered this pest. But before I conquered this pest, wait again. Not pull out my hair much, what? Yeah, anyway, whatever. Right, so prior to us getting to the conversation about this naughty, ntinti, my life thing, there was then the issue with men. So you can understand how horrific bad men are in the life of men, and how bad men will celebrate lie, literally putting on a pedestal and walking it through a city that it might be ululated after and worshipped, a wicked woman at the expense of good girls. It is so sad. The trajectory, it inevitably ends up in a predictable place. But before then, ukusangana in the male community is a real thing. They literally celebrate Jezebel women better than they celebrate godly girls or good women that don't have the character flaws of Jezebelian or Delilic females. Men are like the Titanic sub. Oh, how they love to implode because they love to go under the sea, into underneath the garments of Jezebels. Hebato. Men, when they are youths, that's the thing. The Jezebelian woman has no morals. She's also a flirt of note. Her tongue drips honey, and she knows how to titivate a man with lust. She drips it all over the show. And she is, like I said, women are electric, right? They are mesmerizing to men. And if you are coy and sweet, you will have a calm, stilling, mesmerizing power. But if you are a bad girl, you will have an electric and lightning striky type of mesmerizing power. And unfortunately, lightning is far louder than a tranquil ocean, or than a tranquil or a still lake. Do you understand? You are far more likely to catch a stray man just floating around in the sky, unfortunately, with manure, than you are with honey. It's unfortunate because they ultimately long for honey, but first they settle for manure. It's just such an inevitable thing that happens. So Jezebelian women, they have got a poignant, overbearing, loud-mouthed power over good girls, but for all of 5 seconds. And I am trying to counsel women to not be titivated by the instant gratification of getting men to give you everything you want, salivating at your doorstep, because you have basically banked the power of being a Delilah or a Jezebel. These females, they pride themselves in being so incredibly powerful and poignant to trap men, just as the woman written of in Proverbs 7, 8, and I believe 9, who stands at the city gates and says, "Come and eat of my pleasantries," while her feet go down to death. She is far more likely to capture men's affections and make them dizzy than a calm woman that is equally mesmerizing, but in a very lasting, long-suffering way. Men eventually want the calm girl, but they first ransack their opportunities in life with the loud one, with the one that's like an electric guitar, the one that is like drums beating, the one that is like an ocean that is just ravenously like throwing up mire and dirt all day long, instead of a still, quiet lake. They ultimately want a boat that's just being swayed left to right by a calm lake. But before then, they insist on being capsized by an iceberg, because they're the Titanic in the middle of a cold ocean. They insist on going to dangerous, uncharted waters first. Like I said, they're like the Titanic sub. They love to implode, and the waters around them are bad girls. When they say, you know, they're saying good girls come last, or bad or good guys finish last, it ain't a lie. They do. They finish last, but they also finish most prosperously. They conquer in the end. But the thing that they ultimately have to fight off are the pests of men that realize they shouldn't have gone out like that with Jezebels, because now their lives have been ruined, decimated by bad women. The scriptures make it clear that a bad female is like rottenness in the bones of a man. She is a gangrene, a cancer. Do you understand? She spreads far and wide, and by the time these men wake up, they've already got a terminal illness. They are in dire need of an amputation, and if they don't get an amputation, they will perish in the sight of God. Her feet go down to death. That's why Solomon is always counseling young men to stay away from the immoral woman. The best thing a man can ever do for himself is to get born again as a kid, to get saved when he is young, that the Lord might rescue him from Labo Jezebel. Bani, they are all over. Who is this? There are these 2 young men that I follow online on YouTube. One of them, his name is Mapalo. They're in the US, and then the other one, I don't know what his name is. Blessed in Christ Ministries or whatever, right? They're friends. They are young, like they could be 21, 22 at the latest. and they did a short, right? Umapalo in particular did a short with one of his other boys, talking about DMs, and he's like, you could tell that he was kind of like, feeling himself, but still I understood where he was coming from. I got it. He was like, these Jezebels, having a conversation with his friend. He's like, these girls that be DMing us, they keep on sliding into the DMs, and it's always these Jezebels trying to lick you up a storm, even though you're godly. And when you look at them and their lifestyles, and when you go into their pages, you can see that they're still very much in the world, but they want us. And this guy's like, yeah, it's because they're drawn to goodness. They're drawn to the light. They want the light, but only so they can dim it. And I was like, exactly. What is the difference between Mapalo and my ex-boyfriend? Well, I say Mapalo, I pronounce it with a South African accent, but I don't know how. He probably pronounces it Maypalo. I don't know. Whatever, right? The difference is in the fact that this young man got saved at 19, 20, whereas my ex-boyfriend was still lost at 26. And so, like these DMers, these like random females that slide into the DMs of good guys, because my ex would have qualified as such in the world, though, according to worldly standards. I remember one time my ex and I, we had so many fights. His mother liked me so much that sometimes during our breakup, she would call me on some ish, please don't leave my son. And I was like, I don't know, like I'm exhausted. Because he ultimately started to wear me out, right? This boyfriend of mine. And the mother was like, Mara, let's say the guy, my ex's name was Nonti. I don't know why I chose Nonti. He was like, no, Mara Nonti is Asimotwabanyana. Asimotwabasan. I was telling his mother that Nonti cheated on me. I suspect that he cheated on me. And the mother responded to me by saying, Nonti Asimotwabanyana. Yeah, right. So basically what that means is Nonti is not the kind of man to just be with a whole bunch of women. It's not in him. He's not a player, right? And I was like, but your son did cheat, and I know that he did. I can feel it in my bones. And she was like, he's not into that, right? So basically what I'm trying to explain to you guys, and I'm gonna eventually get to that particular cheating story, right? What I'm trying to explain to you guys is that this dude was like he was not all over the show. He was like with these boys. I made mention in my previous parts that his friends, we'd all go out, and I was the uniform midi, in the sense that I was everywhere all the time with him, whereas his boys would sometimes bring side pieces, and I would meet these side pieces, and I kept the secret. That's how much we betray each other as women. I kept the secret. I never told their middies, but I was constantly being subjugated to the tyranny of meeting side chicks weekend after weekend after weekend after weekend. And I was the only thing that was a constant in there. I was the only one that was always with my ex, and my ex was not cheating. He always took me. I was always the girl that was on his hand, and his boys ended up giving him grief for that. And I'm going to get into that a little bit later, okay? However, the thing that ultimately made Nonti, because that's the name that I gave him, do that to me, cheat, was the peer pressure. It was the capitulation. It was the Jezebelian spirit. It was the fact that his boys, men, were the ones that were celebrating these Jezebels more even than their virtuous middies, more even than their virtuous main chicks. They were happy to basically shatter the hearts of good girls in favor of these bad women, and it caught up with literally all of them. So this guy just joined a bandwagon of gangster nastiness of men and broke the heart of a woman he literally could not afford to lose because of how much she transformed his life. But like I said, I'm gonna get into that. The reason why his mother said to me, Nonti asimotwabanyana, Nonti is not the kind of man to be a player, was because, mother knows son, mother knows best. He was not the cheating type, but he capitulated to like an initiation, like a brutish, man cave-ish type of suggestion coming from a bunch of irresponsible friends that are telling your man that he's not man enough because he's busy being faithful to just one girl at the tiny little age of 26. He lost me because of listening to some bad boys over years. I wrote him out. I suffered him long. And after enough long suffering, what finally broke me loose was conviction by the Holy Spirit that, I'm lost. But I'm going to get into that. However, before then, I want to explain to them females all over the show that in the absence of conversion unto Christ, you are not going to prosper to truly groom a man, build him, as it is your job from God. Indeed, we are helper suitables. We are to still violent waters in men. We are the calming force. We are the balancing act of men. When they are busy being aggressive and hectic and all hard knock, we are the thing that makes them calm down. But at the same time, we can make them worse versions of themselves. So depending on the virtue of the woman or lack thereof, a man can be made or absolutely devastated, shattered. And my ex-boyfriend was a sucker for basically You know, Jezebelian women, the uncomfortable thing about them is that they give men what they temporarily need. Because good girls are so building of men, they're very serving. They're always catering to men's needs, right? In a way that Jezebelian women aren't. But Jezebelian women are needy. They're takers. And men, in order for them to feel manly, sometimes they feel like they ought to be the only ones providing in a relationship any kind of need. And these Jezebelian women are takers. And so they're needy. And so when these men cater to them, they feel needed. They feel needed. They feel needed. They feel wanted. They feel important to these women that absent of them, these women would probably fall apart. These women would not be able to basically get their next day's bread or whatever. However, ride or die women tend to be the ones catering to men's needs. Especially in youth when a guy's yet to establish himself fully. They're the ones that are always providing. Like I said in my relationship, I was the one that was driving. I was the one ultimately, when we started dating, he was making more than me. I grew fast up the corporate ladder. And I started earning more than him. Ultimately, I was the one with the apartment while he was still living at home with his parents. So, and despite it all, I was ride or die. I never ever kicked him out or told him you ain't jack or none of that. If anything, I taught my boyfriend how to drive, for crying out loud. Naso told driver's license, for crying out loud, when we did it. I was the one making the calls to the JMP, to the licensing department, to get him to write Lena's license. Lena's license expired 18 months down the line. He still had not gone for his driver's. I was so mad. I was so angry. And I booked him again. Learners, white taller. This time around I was like, you better get your drivers, and he did. So I was the one. It's like he was my child. I was the one that was catering to him. And like I said, he had a lot right. And so for me, it was like, this is worth working on in the future. We're gonna be cool. Whereas a Jezebel woman, a Delilah, no, you are here to give me. What are you bringing to the table here? I don't want a half-baked man. I don't want a man who's a guy that's not driving. I don't want a man that doesn't have his own apartment. I don't want a man that does not have this kind of salary or this kind of business running, thriving. I don't want a man so Jezebel will reject a man that is needy, but she will take a man any day now that will cater to her needs. And because men just have this desire to provide and to be needed, when then they are in relationships with ride or dies that are catering to their, temporary struggle, since we are all gonna get built and grow and you're gonna be a bigger man later. Because they feel so, they're not fulfilling their comprehensive manhood in this ecosystem, because this woman is just so comprehensively providing of much of what it is that are the basic holes in my life. She's filling them. I want to be needed. And that's how Jezebel women claw themselves into men that are ride or die. That's how these men end up cheating with just filthy women. That's how these men end up hurting good girls in favor of wicked women. These wicked women give men a sense of strength or girth when they are lowly. So what I experienced in my relationship, guys, was just terrible. I literally watched my ex go and cater call center salary to the needs of a Jezebel while he ignored some of my needs. It's like he was like, but you're strong, but she needs me. Yo, guys, it's like in my story, man. Is it king? Why? For days, okay. A man, his boys, friends of these human beings, they exacerbate the issue. They make it worse. And the uncomfortable thing about making the circumstance worse by these men that are the friends of your boyfriend is that low-key they covet, they envy. This is how male jealousy works. It's kind of different from female jealousy. When a man has got such a ride or die woman as that, they will give this man grief with this woman because they don't have her. They will low-key long after her. They will low-key wish they had her. Some of them might even go out of their way to actually have a crush on Imedi Gampinjabo. Have a crush on the main woman, on the girlfriend that is wife material of their boy, because they don't have that. They keep on roaming these streets with Jezebels. And when their boy has got a good woman that's putting him in a bunch, these guys will become saboteurs. That's how male jealousy works. They become saboteurs. They cost their friends good women. That's what I'm getting at. That's how male jealousy works. It's not like female jealousy where the girl will gossip you, compete with you over your career, over your makeup, your face beat, but gossip you like no man's business. Female jealousy is kind of tactless, It's weird like that. It's like, it's not cute, it's nasty, but male jealousy is subtle. It's subtle. They rarely ever compete with each other over possessions and how much money they make, jobs. With them, it's about the woman. If a man has got a good woman, his boys will sabotage that while helping him get his career right, while helping him get the business deal, so you will not even be able to spot it. You won't identify it. The only thing that you will pick up is how it is that men are downplaying a woman that you frankly cannot afford to lose. Downplaying her. And I watched that happen for years. It was a force I could not conquer. I couldn't conquer it, guys. I couldn't conquer it. It was stronger than me. The might and the force and the girth of his boy's influence was weightier than me, until it got to a point where God rescued me from it and showed me that, baby girl, you are never going to get this man back the way that you had him in the beginning of your relationship, because the good work that you did in him, as soon as his boys observed it, they started to chip away at the obvious, generous, beautiful provision that you were in their boy's life, and they have been sweeping you out brick by brick. They've been bringing you down brick by brick. And it's not that his boys don't like you. If anything, if any of them were to get you, they would run off into the sunset. Ngawe bakchathe today. If your boyfriend were to pass away, one of these boys would very quickly try to be there to comfort you, help you get through the pain, so that maybe he can be the one to slip in next. You are such a good girlfriend to your man that his boys, because that's how men compete, are prepared, will literally work tooth and nail to rob their friend of you, so they can all just be in a nice little cesspool of settling for a Jezebel. They all had better middies than that. They had main chicks that were pretty much like me, but they gave their main chicks so much grief because all of them just kept on hurting their main women. And when my boyfriend would not join that bandwagon of insanity, they basically called him a wuss. Low-key. They undermined his manhood, treated him like he's not big enough to be one of the boys. It's like, what is this, high school? Yeah, no. And so I really could not get the end of, I never saw the end of sorrow in this regard with my boyfriend, because it was just downhill from there. And all I had were fragments, memories of how good it used to be in the beginning, of how I was actually really positively influential in this man's life, to a point where his grandmother and his mother were my biggest fans. They absolutely were besotted with me. Guys, you know, I never won my ex's family over by ukotisa nje hard knock. You know, like cooking, cleaning, showing the mother that you can bake. I never had to do any of that. I just had to be a force of positive influence in my man's life, such that his mother never even expected me when I was over go habona to even touch a dish. She treated me like a queen, because for her it was enough that I subdued her son. I basically made her son like David with Abigail. You know how David was about to commit genocide until Abigail walked up and stayed his hand from doing that. I did that. My ex was on a downward spiral. He was going to destroy his life. Njefela, he was aimless in life. He was 26 when I met him. I was 22. And then 26, like I said, not be the driver's license as a driver. He was working Coca-Cola center, just gathering dust in life, going through the modes. And when I came in, there was a positive influence and a positive, like he started to motion in a better direction. And it was, the transformation was so immediate. We fell in love so hard and so fast, and his change was so immediate that his mother, like all the things that women have to do to prove themselves to moms and dads and families, uncles and aunts, embracing you, cousins and the like, all the things that women have to do to basically prove that you should love more than any other woman that this man could ever bring home. The work that women put in, especially in the black community, the boyfriend, like pots and pans and everything, cooking it up a storm during family events. I never had to do any of that. Like proper, my knees never ever got browned or blackened from koroparing at all at any of the households of my family's extended family, or of my ex's extended family. Mengitandwa very ubiquitously in his family by the women. And some of the guys were cool with me, but the men felt like my boyfriend was whipped. They felt like umfazi kwamela subdue, not the other way around. Like, you know, just a very misogynistic climate. Zulu nje, nele mazulu. Zulu vibes, besh, you know, Shaka Zulu rocked up and sort of kind of took, but the influence of the mom over even the dad was such that the dad eventually was like, okay, fine. But I just feel like I was too overbearing on Nonti. I gave him the name Nonti or Nonti, I forgot, right? Nonti. Yeah, the dad felt like I was a bit of a dominatrix over my boyfriend, but the mom was like, ever since she came into our son's life, he comes home on a Friday after work, and we see him all weekend long. We upload. When he's not here, we can actually access him. Masim Fonela, because he's with Ukarabo. He's responsible. Uyafika emsebenzini ngama Mondays. Angaphathanga ibabalas. He was, irresponsible. Akasathatha ama drugs. Uyanona nokunona lo uyamkhumbula ukuthi mekawonde kangakanani. Bek uyagaina. Okay, we see him on the weekends. Sometimes, if he's not with Karabo. And even when we want to contact him, he answers a phone ngama weekends. There would sometimes be days on end that would progress and nobody would know where he's at. Maybe he would get contacted in the office. Haba phone la office number because he went on Monday. But he would just be gone 2 weeks on end. He's like, lo muntu uyalala endlini. He sleeps at home and he's gaining weight. He's healthier. Like there's freshness in his face. So let's say that the dad's name was Stephen. The mom would be like, so Stephen, how in the world are you going to say Ukarabo is not good for Unonti? If our son is so healthy with her, just look at her, just by looking at him. He's gaining a pot belly. You remember how skinny he was when they first met. She's only been in his life for a few months, and look at the positive influence of this woman. The dad eventually was like, I guess, but I just feel as if though she's a little overbearing. Futhi, uyafunda the type it's she's studying. These types to be educated. Sometimes they turn around and they become my ex's boyfriend, my dad. He had guys, I'm gonna ultimately explain how that even worked out with the dad. Okay, the regret that the dad had, because no father wants to see his son get destroyed, and he ended up having to watch that happen and regretted his misogyny. He regretted his misogyny because now I was done. Now I was like, no matter how much he tried to come back, I was like, no. And the dad saw the sorrow of the son now that he was on a downward spiral, and he was like, I wish I hadn't have done that. But I'm gonna get into that point. I need to pee again. We're gonna get into the next part, and we're gonna keep on telling the story next part.